We've made over $180,000 with a webinar funnel, consistently getting over 20% conversion rate and over 40% show up rate. And in this next 9 minutes, I want to give you the exact blueprint that you can use to literally 3x your revenue. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So number one, if you're running a webinar and you're not getting enough leads, you're simply not leveraging all your platforms correctly. So what I mean by that is, for a webinar funnel, the volume is super, super important. Increasing both registrations and attendance rate directly impacts the revenue. And what I mean by you're not leveraging all your platforms correctly is simply you're not pushing it hard enough. So if you have TikTok, you have Instagram, you have Twitter, you have YouTube, with YouTube, replace all your links with a webinar. If you're running a webinar, just push it, everywhere. Just get every single eyeball that you have, whether that's your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your TikTok, your Instagram. You can literally push it everywhere. And yeah, this is the one thing that most people are not doing. Your YouTube links, you're still getting views on the previous video. So make sure if you're doing a big webinar, replace all the links and make sure people are getting there. Next are story sequences. Push them every single day. And yeah, simply to keep it short, you just want to post it everywhere. I'll keep it as simple as that. But yeah, you might not be realizing that you have an audience elsewhere that you're not leveraging. Make sure you are. Again, free school communities, free Telegram chats, your email list, definitely leverage all of it, post it anywhere. Now, that's for the organic part. Now, the next thing that you could do to increase your webinar revenue is simply running ads. Now, I know some of you might be, skeptical or a little, worried about starting ads, but actually running ads to a webinar funnel is super, super simple. It's not as complex as, for example, running a, self-liquidating funnel or a call funnel, where you need to have dialers to, call up all the leads and you need them to watch a 15-minute VSL to, consider filling out an application form. You literally, just send them to a registration page and all they need to do is, click one button and register. They don't need to watch a long video. They don't have to, get on a call with a sales guy. They're not even gonna know that they're about to be sold on the webinar. They're just simply gonna see it as free value. Not that many people are using a webinar funnel, so people are not used to seeing it that much as a VSL call funnel. So yeah, number one, it is less saturated, so it's easier to rip with it. You'll get a lower cost per lead because again, it's a new funnel that it's not a new funnel, but it's a funnel that not so many people are using. It's just giving up straight up value. So yeah, it's super simple to get people to register for it. And with ads, you can expect anywhere from $5 to $15 per registrant. Depending on your niche, how competitive it is, and yeah. So those are two ways that you can increase your attendance. Number one, organic, make sure you leverage every single platform. Number two, paid ads. They're super simple to run. And if you want some help on it, or you don't just want to do it on your own, I do help people run this. So this is cooked now, but yeah, first link in the description. You can go there, book call with me, and yeah, we can talk. So next, your attendance rate sucks. So here's what you do. It's good that you get all this traffic, all the registrants, but it's all for nothing if you don't get them to actually show up for the class. So here's what you got to do to make sure you just increase it as much as possible. So number one, if you are running ads, if you decided to go that route, use the hammer them strategy. What I mean by that is you just create a custom audience of the people that have registered. You create a new campaign and you target specifically those people that have registered. And basically what you just want to do is you want to shove as much of your content in front of their face as possible. If you've been on YouTube and you don't have the premium, you've probably experienced it that you keep seeing that one guy popping up again and again and again and again, and eventually you click on his funnel because you just got curious on what's going on there. So yeah, that's pretty much the same concept. You just want to do that. Make sure they just remember your face. And yeah, number one, they'll be super nurtured. They'll consume even more of your content. And number two is just reminders that the class is happening, and you'll stay actually in their head. Because they actually they see a lot of ads. They click on a lot of ads, and they just scroll in, and they can forget easily. So this way, you'll be there. You'll be in front of their faces. They'll keep seeing you. So this works even better than your email reminders and some other stuff. But of course, you also want to have your email and SMS sequences. Not saying that it's not important, but yeah, I'd say that's just the bare minimum. You should have that if you're running a webinar funnel. You absolutely should already have that. But yeah, with the SMS, make sure you send a lot of them. Don't be stingy on the cost because getting a person on the webinar, seeing it, buying your program is going to easily pay for the SMS cost. So yeah, don't be stingy on that. Hammer them with the SMS as well. And yeah, for the thank you page, nothing crazy there. You make sure to have a quick 2-minute VSL, just explaining more on what they're about to learn, who you are, show them testimonials, show them that you know what you're talking about, make them hyped up for the class, and you'll tell them about the next steps. And the next step is to join a WhatsApp or a Telegram group. This is super, super important because yeah, not that many people are gonna check email because they're getting so many emails. But if they join your WhatsApp group or your Telegram group, there's a big chance that they have their notifications on, and they'll see all your notifications and all your pre-webinar materials that you want to send them there to again remind them of the event, nurture them a little more. And yeah, just again, be in their head and just keep reminding them of what's gonna happen. So yeah, with this system, you'll absolutely maximize the show up rate and you'll just make as much as possible from your webinar. So yeah, use all these and let me know if that helped you boost your show up rate. All right, now next is your webinar is about something people don't care about. All right, so what you need to make sure is you select the right angle and the right value proposition for your webinar. So you need to make sure that what you're teaching on the class is actually something they want to learn about, and it's not just some general information that is just anywhere. Make sure it's unique to yourself. So ask yourself what differentiates you from your competitor. What do your clients struggle the most with? What's their biggest barrier to success? And how can you attract qualified prospects? So that's what you want. You don't just want anyone on the class, but you want people that are actually serious. So yeah, dig up your old ICP sheet. You can even play around with AI a little bit to give you even more details on it. It's been working super well. I've recently been doing that with all my clients. Just talking to GPT and just getting more about my average Joe. But yeah, this is the foundation. You want to make sure your webinar is actually something people want to learn about. So yeah, don't skip this part. Make sure to have a good offer. Next, you want to have a lead magnet. You want to offer something for people registering, and yeah, it's just another great pusher to people that are on the fence that don't want to register. But if you offer a good lead magnet, it'll just increase the likelihood of them actually registering. It's not going to cost you anything, but only what it's going to do is it's going to nurture them even more, and it's going to bait them into registering. So yeah, have a resource that you can send them, whether that's a free training video, whether that's a worksheet. I'd really recommend a worksheet related to the event. So something that they can work on now, and then they can take it to the class and work on the class with it, with you. That will just increase the sharp rate like crazy. It'll give them something to work on right now so they don't forget. Again, just a great way to increase sharp rate and also increase the registration rate because everyone wants a free resource, right? So yeah, next thing you can do is also a case study. So a long format case study video or a case study sales letter, just whatever resource you have, offer it, and yeah, you'll boost both the attendance and sharp. Next, we have use both emotion and logic in message. So all your promotional content should evoke emotion while also providing logical benefits. So what I mean by that is people want both practical value. So what I'll learn, what I get, but also emotional motivation. So in your messaging with your organic content, make sure you tap the pain points that they have, make sure to tap the goals that they have. And if you remember my last video with Shelby Sapp, she did that great. She just posted a story sequence, exactly explaining how her ICP feels. So I don't know the exact wordings at the moment, but it was just speaking directly to those girlies. I know their inner wants. And yeah, she just combined perfectly the emotions and the logic. And yeah, she is absolutely crushing with webinars. So next up, continue this messaging after registration to maintain excitement. So yeah, inside the emails, don't just strictly be this is what you get, this is what you get, this is what you get. All the logical stuff. You're gonna learn this, you're gonna learn this. Yeah, again, combine both, sell them on a dream, give them also the logical stuff that they'll actually get. But yeah, if you've been running any other call funnels or it's pretty much the same thing. So yeah, the goal is to make attendees so eager that they'll cancel other plans to attend this class. So you don't want to get messages like, oh, I can't do this. Is there going to be a recording? No, the goal is to make them quit their other plans, quit their dates and show up to the webinar. So yeah, next up we got deliver massive value. Yeah, so this is super important. So on your actual class, you need to make sure people are taking notes and that your information is super valuable and relevant. You don't just want to be dropping some generic stuff that they've already heard. You want to make sure this is actually super valuable and they are thinking in their head like, holy shit, why is this free? Right? So yeah, that's what it got to feel like. It's got to feel like they just paid 2K for it and you're just delivering massive value. So yeah, how that's gonna look like, you just wanna, now how's that gonna look like? So yeah, the actual value part, you wanna have that around 45 to 60 minutes. The rest of the webinar is gonna be framing and the pitch and Q&A. But yeah, the actual sauce part, I think the perfect time for that is 45 minutes. And if you're running a B2B, it could be even longer. You could even run a 3-hour webinar. Do not sleep on the Q&A. So yeah, a lot of people treat a Q&A as an afterthought, but it's actually super important. And pretty much a Q&A section is basically a webinar equivalent of objection handling on sales calls. So number one, it reveals what objections were not handled during your presentation and or your pre-webinar materials. Next, it helps you identify exactly what's stopping people from buying, and it gives you literally a second chance to overcome those and get them to either purchase the product or book a call. One answer question might be the difference between someone buying or not, and most commonly, dozens of others likely have the same concern. So again, the beauty of a webinar, it's it's a sales call one to many, not one-on-one. So you're literally handling question of someone that maybe a lot of others have as well. Next, demonstrate expertise in real time under pressure. So anyone can deliver a scripted presentation, or okay, not everyone, but you can practice that a lot. But answering questions in real time, with the pressure, not everyone can do that, and it just creates insane credibility, and it shows you that you are really an expert, which they should already trust. But this is the last nail in the coffin, because as well, it builds genuine connections because you went from just talking to the people, just presenting, showing them stuff, to actually connecting and communicating with them. So they just feel a lot better that they're actually talking to you and you're not just listening to you. And lastly, it shows that you understand their concerns and you can address them directly live on there. So yeah, don't sleep on that. Now, lastly, book a call or a mid-ticket. So a lot of the people, are doing either a book a call webinar or a mid-ticket webinar. So the difference between that is on a mid-ticket webinar, you pretty much just sell the offer directly on the class, at the end. And with a book a call funnel, you have the call to action to book a call with your sales team, and you sell afterwards on sales calls. So when choosing between that, I personally like book a call more. Simply because for us personally, it gave us better results than running a mid-ticket funnel. And I'd actually recommend that one better because, the conversion rate on the webinar is going to be a lot higher. We've had a, over 20% conversion on a book call. We've had around 8 on a mid-ticket. So, we just get a lot more people in the pipeline and, we get the chance to sell them on a higher ticket straight away. You don't have to be selling a 1K offer or anything like that. So yeah, it does spread out, the cash that you collect into a longer time frame. But in my experience, it's worked better for us. So, I'd recommend you actually do a book a call webinar. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got tons of value. Again, if you want to work with me, first link in the description, feel free to book a call. We can talk. And yeah, subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.